Strikes are generally broader social movement employed to pressurize governments to change policies or reverse decisions. Trade unions or labor organizations employed strikes to address employees' grievances. Now, while strike is legal in countries like Canada, France, US, and UK, with some restriction though, in some countries like China, these rights are restricted now and viewed as counter-revolutionary. In Nigeria, frequent strikes by the organized labor often cripple businesses and disrupt academic calendar. For Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, to Joint Health Workers Union, JOHESU, to National Association of Resident Doctors, and many industrial disputes to contend with.
Joining us in the studio to discuss this is Adefolarin Olamilekan, a political economist and development researcher in the studio. Good morning, and it's good to have you join us.
Good morning.
It's great to have you again.
Same to you.
Yeah, I believe you watched the video we just played about, workers, pensioners, rather, on the street protesting for, they believe that they should not be part of a contributory scheme and all of that. What does that say about the relationship here in Nigeria between the employer and the employee?
Generally, when things like this happen, it goes back to the effect on the economy. And for us to understand the essence of workers protesting, workers demonstrating, workers demanding for their right, it will take us back to understand the internationalization of the economy of the world, the unequal global development of economy in regions and countries. Very well, workers have to demand for their right, but that right also corresponds to what they have done, in a sense that Nigerian state has been having issues with workers, how to meet up with their demands. And what are their demands? Their general welfare, their salary, their remuneration, and what have you. But all of a sudden, since 1986, after the introduction of SAP, and SAP brought about anti-labor laws, which ensured freezing of wages. If you go back to the history of the impact of SAP, you understand why up to today, the Nigerian state have not been able to come out to be able to meet up with the challenges of satisfying the workers' demand. And that's what has brought us to this point. So the protest that we are watching on TV is as a result of the Nigerian state failure to be able to contribute and make sure that the workers are well taken care of. Although there are challenges along the line in terms of pensions and the rest of the things, which we'll go into further discussion as we engage in this discussion this morning.
So would you say there's something wrong with all of the demands, particularly, ASU and now Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors? Do you think there's something wrong with their demands?
What is wrong in their demand, or what is not wrong in their demands, are two ways. We have to understand the context I'm coming from as a political economist. How stable is the Nigerian economy to meet up with the demands of the workers? I don't know whether we are flowing. Let's flow this way. How stable is the economy in terms of generation of revenue to pay the workers? Although there have been arguments that majorly political appointees are receiving more, and because of issue of corruption, the state will not be able to meet up with the demands of the worker. But beyond that, what are the issues that lead to all this? I made the mention of the problem of SAP, that when SAP was introduced, it brought about entrenching anti-labor laws, whereby wages are now being freezed. It was at that point that workers are now being relegated into a position that they were not able to agitate or get what they really want. Another issue is the level of Nigerian economic development. And this goes back to also understand the global inequality in the development of economy in regions and countries. And if we can understand this, we can be able to appreciate where we need to go and solve this problem. ILO, International Labour Organization, they all be pressing for better wages, for better welfare for workers. Have they ever pressed for better economic development of regions and countries?
Okay, so you're taking it from the bigger perspective, from the
that's really what we can understand
root cause of it, isn't it? Yes. Now let's narrow down to the Nigerian Association of Civil Resident Doctors. Now, this issue about their strike that has lingered for quite a while, would you say that this same reason is why we have seen incessant strike actions by different groups in Nigeria, in particular this resident doctors?
For the resident doctors, there's a cause of insincerity on the part of the Nigerian state, in a sense that all the demands of the workers, especially doctors, at a point of promise, at a point of fulfilling, there will be breakdown. And what is that breakdown? The revenue to support the fulfillment of those promises is in shortfall.
Is it a product of revenue or corruption?
I said there are a complex issues around meeting all workers' demand. I'm taking it from the point of economic angle. We can still go to the corruption angle. But let's look at the economic angle, which will justify why the Nigerian state, for now, and we don't know whether in future they'll be able to meet it, because global economy, as we make the money, where does it go to? And this all brings us to the issue of corruption. Partly corruption, partly to unfulfilled promise, and partly to fulfilling promise. So let's look at it from the point of corruption, which majorly Nigerians normally aims on. But I don't want us to look at the issue of the corruption alone. There are other fundamental issues. I made mention of International Labour Organization. International Labour Organization is the leading global organization that lead workers all over the world, that Nigerian Labour Congress, TUC, all of them affiliate to. In the quest to make global economy equal, in the quest to make workers have equal access to welfare, have they ever fight for the deliberate incursion, seizing and significant way that regions and countries can have a balanced economic development, so that at the end of the day, whatever is coming down to the country, they can be able to fulfill the promises of the workers. Are they doing it?
So are you saying because of the porous nature of Nigeria's economy, workers should now understand that, okay, this is how the economy works, and lay back and not fight for their rights?
No, not really. That's not what I'm going to do. Let us understand where the problem comes. As the problem becomes, we can be able to address the issue from the international realm. It now becomes a domestic issue. When nation state, regions are not competing equally to gain fully have economic abundance, and nation state are not be able to meet up with the demands of their workers, of their people, it boils down to, let us address it from the international then to the local. At the local, majorly, the problem we normally have the local is that there is corruption in satisfying workers. But we don't normally look at the other aspect of it, that there is also injustice globally, whereby countries don't have opportunity to compete, to be able to gain fully economically. But the major issue that most of us normally dwell on, especially media report and the rest of them, I'm also a comrade. But we must also look deeply at the foundational problem.
Yes, so but those foundational problems, I would say, are much more complex, and it's, I would say, beyond the powers of any state in particular to really have a control over. If you look at those from the international dimension, of course, you have to look at the issue of global trade.
Definitely.
You know, the deals and interrelations between nations and all
definitely.
of that. You also need to look at global politics as well and all of that. So, if you look at Nigeria as a country, where is Nigeria placed as far as global politics and global trade is concerned?
We are placed, but our place is mispriority, in the sense that when look at AFTAC, the African Free Trade Organization that was set up, how much of African countries are pushing? It took Nigeria how many months before we finally sign on that agreement? These are the things that we're supposed to be pushing for, to enhance the economic development of regions and countries, so that we can be able to take care of our workers. Nobody is complaining that there is no corruption. There is deeply corruption, especially in terms of pension and the rest of them. But we must not sideline all those other issues, because at the end, if we settle the issue of corruption, what about the other side? That is the angle I'm coming from.
So as an economist, what should we do?
Basically, what should we do? One, at the international fora, let us press forward, let us push forward, that we demand for equal economic development, equal competition, equal participation in all economic fronts, WTO and the rest of them. Then at the home front, we need to tackle the corruption aspect of it, which now boil on our political bearers on what to do and what needs to do.
There are those that will say, you know, there are certain critical sectors, and health is one of those critical sectors, and that those who work in those sectors, they render essential service. And so they shouldn't be seen to be embarking on, you know, strike actions just like any other sector is doing. Do you agree with that?
Very well. The major reason why that happens all the time is the insincerity of the Nigerian state. I will repeat it again. Insincerity of the Nigerian state. Not just the health workers. What about primary school teachers? Our focus has always been on health workers, oil company workers, because they have a stay in the economy and the rest of them. What about teachers? We should categorize and apply the same rules for all of them. Not just health workers alone, not just doctors, not just nurses, teachers inclusive, security personnel inclusive, like the protesting pensioners. Why do we always have issues with all this? And it boils down to insincerity of the Nigerian state, insincerity of our political bearers, insincerity of people that are managers of our economy and the rest of them, until they take the right step. And the only way they can take the right step is not just until workers protest. We must engage them. That's my own point of view. We must engage them on all their policies. And one of the things we need to understand is this. Whenever they are bringing up policy that would disengage or disregard workers, we should stand against it. And one of the ways we can stand against it, also to look at it from both economic side, because majority of us have been focusing on the monetary side in terms of the social inclusion side. What about the economic indices, economic issues around workers' welfare? That doesn't just go with Nigerian state alone, but include Africa and the global world. So we must look at it from that perspective. But our focus has always been on the corruption of the system. Good, corruption is in the system. Even the corruption we are trying to fight is also global. The insincerity in Nigerian state also flows from what is happening at international level. I hope we are getting it. So that's why I bring the international context to the issue. We must understand it from that perspective that whatever that is happening in Nigeria today domestically, it has an external force.
Okay. Now with Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala becoming the director of the WTO, she highlighted some reforms that she plans to do. So far, is this captured in some of those reforms?
Definitely it will, but will they allow her to fulfill such? One thing you should understand about the international organization is that most of them have issues in trying to satisfy or bring about what they call the equality of all nation, state, and region. Because at the end of the day, if everybody is equal, it may be to the disadvantage to some. And when everybody is not equal, it also be to advantage to some. So that's what really happened. Our reforms will be good on paper, but how implementable will that be? After, for Africa, how far has it gone? This is a very laudable, fundamental reform to change the narrative of and change the paradigm shift of African trade among themselves. How far have that gone? Everybody is lagging behind. When ECOWAS wanted to introduce one single currency, what happened at the end of the day? I'm just citing an example of how they can retard beautiful on paper policy that will not be allowed to practically be done. So WTO bringing up issues or bringing up policies that will reform the trade, that will bring about competitiveness among regions and countries. How far will Mrs. Ngozi be able to achieve that? Knowing fully well that she's working for WTO, and WTO is, as Imi said, controlled by Western powers and the rest. And you know, one thing I've always tell people is this: the progress of regions, especially Africa, could be a disadvantage to some certain regions. So whatever we want to do in Africa, we must press forward and push for what we think to be better for us.
Okay, so as you talk about AFTA and how that Africa must do can do business with itself for the good. Also another factor is the issue of competition. So if we are opening our space for business, with the global economy, then we should be able to compete favorably. Otherwise, it will now be to our own detriment. So how can Nigeria compete favorably globally?
One of the things we need to do is to have a stakeholders consensus agreement to this competition that we want to go into. There are so many businesses that have been established in Nigeria that have affiliates with Western world and Asian countries. Would they have a policy that will allow them to compete through AFTA? Because those are the issues that many people have ignoring. Many of these conglomerates that you see, TNC, multinational companies, have affiliates with their mother country. So when AFTA come, will they allow it to function the way it wants to function? And again, there's also this dichotomy between Francophone countries and Anglophone countries. And that's now has not been really settled in AFTA reform process. So we also call that if the two regions and all the regional organizations can come together and be able to settle this, that competitiveness will be there, and it will always bring a balance to the economy of Africa as a whole. And that, me, I believe, will help us to go a long way.
So would you say we have what it takes to compete?
We have it, but how can we marshal it to achieve that competitiveness is the grammar, is the big problem for Nigeria. We have the manpower, we have the resources, we have everything, but how can we harmonize all this together to make it more competitive for us? And because of the internationalization of Nigerian economy, because of so many conglomerates around us, companies from far and near, it's bringing up issues. We may not have time to go into deep issues around Nigerian economy, how external forces are playing so much like a sabotage, not to allow the economy to grow. But for after, as we see now, the competitiveness rely on Nigerians themselves. And the Nigerian state must be at the forefront. And the only way to be at the forefront is to harmonize all the stakeholders through a consensus building on agreement that will make Nigeria be a front leader in the implementation of AFTA. And which I believe that strongly, as a political economist, it will go a long way to help Africa, because I believe so much in African development, and I believe that Nigeria have a way or have a lead role to play in all this.
So, you say it's like, because of AFTA, Nigeria will be able to, do well and, be more viable in terms of economy and all of that. But here we have 36 states that we have not really fully been able to take advantage of all the potential deposited in all the various states, for instance. So don't you think that there's a problem with the structure domestically in terms of the framework, in terms of the environment to function business-wise for us to be able to compete before we start talking about opening our space for foreign competition?
This is the issue with the domestic economy in terms of the subnational government. Since 1999, how much of tax has Nigerian taxed each of the states to go into industrialization, to support business investment and the rest of them? All you see most of the time are just paperwork and media showing. At the end of the day, after the 4-8 years of a particular governor, everything go back to what? To the library or to the shelf. Nobody tried to reactivate such activities again. A good example is the Calabar Tourism Center. How much have that state gone into making use of that particular aspect? What about the little cottage industries scattered all over Nigeria? In most states, how far have the state government gone into it to make it more productive and more efficient? We talk about mineral resources mining. I've suggested this to many state governments through my articles in newspaper and national dailies, that take opportunity in mining, set up corporation, set up enterprise that could be of advantage in mining, especially like states like Nasarawa State and the rest of them. They can set up organizations that can be mining mineral resources that will help them in strengthening up their economy. But how much of that have they taken? So the issue of domestic economy is more or less like the laxity on the part of the political bearers, the political appointees, who now see the opportunity that whatever comes from the federal is good enough, but whatever we can generate from the state, let us leave it there. And for who? Nobody knows. So it is now opportunity for us to engage, not just the federal government. Last week when I was here, I was talking about the engagement should not start and stop at the federal government alone. Subnational government should also be taxed, should also be engaged. Right now, Kaduna State is conducting an investment forum or whatever. Beyond those investment seminar forums that state normally organize, how much of that practicality of that thing have they done? Last week also, Abuja Chambers of Commerce organized an industrial show of complex and all the rest of it. How much can we go beyond just organizing seminars and paperwork? And that is the tax. And the tax is beckoned on Nigerians. Not just engaging political issues with INEC and the rest. Let us engage them. As I said last week, from NNPC to CBN to subnational government to investment forum to investment ministry, let us engage them from the perspective of economy. When we engage them from the perspective of economy, we tax them on what to do. When they bring out the policy, we examine the policy, we point to them, these are the do's and don'ts of that policy. Why don't we do it this way? Like Bade Onimo, they said, we should stop the myopic bias against there's no alternative. There is always alternative to every policy that will be more better and more robust to our economy.
Well, thank you so much. We've been speaking with Adefolarin Olamilekan. He is a political economist and development researcher. Thank you for coming on the show this morning and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much for Trust TV, and the opportunity is great. And I think Trust TV is already gaining momentum among the watchers of TV in Nigeria.
Thank you so much
for that compliment.